All right, let's dive in. There are literally thousands of books out there on money and investing. You've got the timeless classics, the modern deep dives, and let's be real, it's a ton to get through. So today, what we're going to do is boil down the core wisdom from over 40 of the most popular ones into one single powerful framework.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you could soak up the core lessons from dozens of the world's top financial experts, but without having to read thousands and thousands of pages? Well, guess what? That is exactly what we're about to do right now.
So, we've basically funneled all the big ideas from foundational books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, those psychological classics like Think and Grow Rich, and even the super practical guides like One Up on Wall Street. And you know what's wild? Across all of them, the journey to wealth always begins in the exact same place, right here in your mind. Yeah, that's right. Before you can even think about where to invest your money, you've got to change how you think about money itself. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with this really fundamental mental shift. This is that classic idea from Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? On one side, you've got the poor dad mindset. It's all about trading your time for money, getting that secure job. The main goal, safety. But then, on the other hand, you have the rich dad mindset. And this is all about creating systems, acquiring things that make you money even when you're not actively working. The goal here isn't just safety, it's freedom. Okay, so what exactly is an asset? It's simple, really. It's anything that puts money into your pocket. We're talking about stuff like stocks or real estate that brings in rent, or maybe even a side business that's generating extra cash. The whole game is to collect as many of these as you can. And then, of course, you've got the flip side, liabilities. These are the things that are constantly taking money out of your pocket. Now, the core message from basically every book is to keep these to an absolute minimum, especially when you're just starting out. But look, just knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, that's only step one. You actually have to do something about it. And that really captures the big but you find in books like Think and Grow Rich. Your mindset, that's the fuel. But, fuel's pretty useless without an engine to power. You can sit around and visualize success all day long, but real wealth, that gets built through consistent, focused action. So once your mind is in the right place, it's time to pick your vehicle.
All right, so your mindset is locked in. Now it's time to look at the vehicles you can use to build your wealth. And as it turns out, there are a few really distinct paths you can go down.
So, this is the famous cash flow quadrant, and it basically shows the 4 ways people make money. Most of us, right, we start out as an E for employee. Some of us might branch out and become an S for self-employed. But the real magic, the real financial freedom, that's usually found over on the right side of this thing. That's where you make the big shift from active income, where you're working for money, to passive income, where you own systems or assets that work for you. Now, the book, The Millionaire Fastlane, breaks this down even more simply into 3 paths. First, you've got the sidewalk. This is where you're just stuck, living paycheck to paycheck. Then there's the slow lane. This is the traditional advice we all hear, right? Get a good job, save your money for 40 years, and then you can retire. But then there's the fast lane. And this is all about leveraging your time to create things, products, systems that keep earning you money long after you've done the initial work.
But, and this is super important, let's be crystal clear about something. The fast lane is not the get-rich-easy lane, not even close. It takes a ton of hustle, a ton of hard work, and just incredible discipline. That quick part of get rich quick, that only becomes a possibility after you've put in years of work and built up a mountain of experience and knowledge.
Okay, so you've rewired your mindset, you've picked your path, now it's time for the final piece of the puzzle. The real practical tactics for actually making your money grow. It's time to start the engine. But before you put even a single dollar on the line, you have to deal with something called ignorance debt. And what is that? Well, it's the gap between what you know right now and all the information you need to know to actually hit your financial goals. And trust me, closing that gap, that is your first and most critical investment. And the amazing thing is, once you start paying attention and start learning, you begin to see that some of the absolute best investment opportunities are hiding in plain sight. They're connected to things you already use, things you already know and deal with in your everyday life.
Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. One of the authors we looked at had a great personal experience with those invisible teeth aligners. I mean, they were so impressed with the product, they just loved it. So they decided, hey, let me look into the company that makes this. And what do you know? They found out it was a publicly traded company, so they bought the stock.
And the result? It ended up being the single biggest return they ever got on any investment. And this is just a perfect illustration of that classic principle: invest in what you know. That one investment, born completely from a personal experience, shows you that an average person, yeah, you, can actually have a real advantage over the so-called pros on Wall Street. Now, that personal insight gave them a huge edge, for sure, but it was also backed up by these timeless principles you find in all the great investing books. Number one, you have to have a rational framework for your decisions. Number two, and this is the really hard part, you cannot let your emotions hijack that framework. And number three, you have to study the patterns of success, not just get starstruck by those crazy outlier stories where, let's be honest, luck played a massive role. So all of this, it all builds up to the final and maybe the single most important takeaway from all 40 of these books. This is the one lesson that pretty much holds everything else up. You know, if you boil it all down, there's one common thread that runs through every single piece of legitimate financial advice. And it's this: there are no shortcuts. It just takes discipline, it takes persistence, and it takes being able to keep your emotions in check when there's money on the line. But there's one critical investment that a surprising number of these books just kind of gloss over. And what is it? It's this. Very, very few of these money-focused books really talk about the most important first step of all, which is investing in yourself. I mean, really think about it for a second. Investing in the stock market, that's usually a really long, really slow game, right? But investing in your own skills, in your ability to earn more money, maybe through a business or a side hustle, that can deliver a much, much faster return on your investment, especially in the short term. And that brings us to our final question for you. After boiling down the wisdom of 40 different books, it all comes down to this one thought. Look, the stock market, it's always going to be there. But your potential to earn more, to grow, that's here right now. So the real question is, what is the very first investment you are going to make in yourself?